Hey Johnny, check this out.
Oh, holy f, that is sick. Dude, we've got to make one of these. This is a tambour door. This is a 3D carved tambour door.
And this is a 3D tambour door with skulls carved into it.
And this is a veneer tambour door. But there is just one big problem. Making a tambour door like this is way harder than any of those other tambour doors I just showed you.
How's he do that?
I don't know, because that's veneer. But if I can figure this out, pieces like this sell for $20,000 or even more.
I want $20,000.
Also, I have something really special planned for this piece when it's done.
Oh my God, this is mine?
Okay, let's dive in. This build is highly complex and there are so many steps before I get over that finish line. So you know what, let's just go ahead and dive right in. And first up, I'm starting by turning these slabs into dimensional walnut boards that I can then glue up into the panels that I'll use to put this cabinet together. More on that here in a bit, but first, I want to ask you guys something. Have you ever seen a piece of furniture and thought, I have to own that? Or maybe even better, I have to build that. When I saw Aaron Port's Tambour cabinet made with veneer, I knew that I had to build a version of my own, but I also knew that I knew nothing about how to build this and that this project is going to test the limits of my woodworking skills because I have very little experience working with veneer and zero experience using the real high-end stuff like this. Also, real quick, if you're wondering what a veneer is, it's a thin sheet of wood attached to a paper backer, and then you glue it onto a piece of plywood or an MDF substrate, and you make really beautiful pieces of furniture, like this, or this one, or this one, or even this one. Just the process of creating the veneers is really fascinating, but when you combine veneer with tambour, it creates a whole bunch of challenges.
How's he do that?
I don't know, because that's veneer, and then you would have to cut it up. There's a lot about this project that I'll need to figure out, but the biggest question that I have is how that original artist is cutting up veneers to make tambour cabinets. Because if you just cut it with a table saw, you lose a ton of the grain. You guys know that I was a cop for 20 years, and I spent 13 of those years as a detective. And I love a good mystery, but it's gonna take all of my skill to figure this one out. And solving that mystery is gonna be the key to unlocking this entire project. I mean, I think I have an idea, but you know what? We'll get to that here shortly. But first, let's start with what I do know. I know I'm gonna build a record cabinet with tambour doors. I know it needs 6 drawers inside, 3 across the top, 3 more down the middle. I know that the construction of the cabinet is gonna consist of an inner cabinet and then a top and bottom panel that attach to that inner cabinet, and then that's where the tambour doors are gonna ride in a groove. And I know that I still have to figure out how to attach veneer to tambour doors and then cut it up in a way that doesn't break the pattern. There is a ridiculous number of panels that I have to glue up to build this cabinet, 14 to be exact, and I wasn't paying close enough attention and ended up making several panels the wrong size, which means after all that time I spent milling lumber for 2 days and then gluing that in the panel, that's all wasted. I absolutely hate making dumb little mistakes like that, but don't worry, I'm not done screwing stuff up in this build quite yet. I'm gonna have to get some more lumber to make the panels that are the correct size, so I did have to make a quick lumber run to my local Rockler store here in Oklahoma City to grab even more walnut. I like to keep big cabinet assemblies like this as simple as possible, and the best way that I've found is to use dados and rabbets to put everything together. It makes all that joinery really simple and foolproof as long as you don't screw it up, and I often make projects more difficult on myself by making, one big mistake. But on this build, there wasn't that one big mistake that set me back. There was a series of smaller mistakes that I made throughout the build, and I like to call this one death by 1,000 cuts. Especially this cut right here where I didn't have the panel properly secured and it moved while I was routing in the dado. Also, it doesn't bode well when you mess up on the very first panel that I'm cutting the joinery on. But don't worry, I promise this is not the last mistake I'm gonna make. Y'all know me. So this is that piece that I messed up with the router, and now I've gotta fix that little mistake. Thankfully, I have the offcut from that same glue up. So that means this piece right here is the same board that's right here, so I can match that color exactly. I'm gonna make a little patch, cut it out of this, and then I'll inlay it into here. You'll never be able to tell unless you look closely, and then you'll definitely be able to tell. Like any good detective covering their tracks, I've got to fix this mistake, and having that offcut board means I should be able to grain match this pretty good where most folks won't notice. But like I said, if you look closely, you're definitely gonna see it. And that just speaks more to the point of when you're building such high-end pieces of furniture, there is extremely little margin of error. I mean, messing up on one of the first few cuts that I've made on this piece doesn't bode well for the rest of this build, so I need to get focused. And attention to detail is everything. I mean, if I'm gonna match that original cabinet, I've gotta be really paying attention. Got that dusty leg. That ain't going no. Even after that first mistake, I went ahead and cut a few more panels using the router, but eventually I wised up and decided to install the dado stack blade on my table saw to cut the rest of those panels. Now I can start by fitting all those panels together, and this is what I was sort of talking about earlier. Using dados and rabbets makes the assembly way easier, way better, and the best part, it's super satisfying. The dry fit is looking really good, so I'm gonna go ahead and assemble this inner cabinet with some glue. In order to make this cabinet really pop, I need to find the nicest veneer I could find, but the problem is I don't even know where to start looking. I need the really high-end stuff for this project. And when I started researching where to get that kind of material, my search led me back to one place, and that's GL Veneer in Northern California. Which makes sense because in Northern California and Oregon, they have access to the best lumber in the world. And GL Veneer specializes in turning that really nice lumber into insanely figured veneer sheets like this one, or this one, or this olive ash burl veneer, because this stuff is crazy, and I almost just switched the whole direction of the project to use this stuff, but I went with Claro walnut veneer. I actually ordered 2 sheets of it, and while I was waiting on those to arrive, I just kept plugging away on this build. And next up is cutting that top and bottom panel over on Owen Wilson. And right here is where I'm gonna carve in the track that the Tambour doors will ride in. But when I checked the panels after they were done carving, something was off. Correct spacing, incorrect spacing, by a lot. That's not good. I really don't wanna waste this material.
Thoughts?
I guess I did something wrong. Okay. It's fine, it's fine. I'm gonna go take a nap.
Look, if you need any help, give me a holler. I'll be upstairs asleep.
And I came up with a quick solution, which is to make some router templates to open that groove back up where it needs it. And this definitely beats having to remake those panels, which not only did I very much not want to do, but I'm also completely out of those walnut slabs that I use, and I wouldn't be able to get more for a couple weeks. So I need this to work out. And I just hate wasting such nice lumber, but thankfully this worked like a charm. But this wasn't the only mistake that I made on this panel. When I carved this panel on the CNC earlier, I did have a bit of tear out, which you can see right here. And just like with that panel that I messed up early on in the build, I do have the offcut from this panel, so I can grain match with the patch. And I've come to learn over the last 8 years that 90% of woodworking is just basically fixing mistakes. I mean, they're always gonna happen. Y'all know me. But getting good at fixing them and making it look like it never happened is what really separates the novices from the pros. With no one really revealing their secrets as to how they're turning veneer into Tambour doors, I'm just gonna have to wing it and come up with my own method. And I wanna use some 1/2-inch Baltic birch plywood for the substrate that veneer is attached to, but I also wanna make this as difficult on myself as possible. So here's my plan. I've got Jeff over there cutting the strips of that 1/2-inch Baltic birch plywood, but each strip is gonna get flipped onto its side, that side with the edge grain where you can see the layers of the plywood, and this is what the veneer is gonna get attached to. I'm gonna do this on the router table using this bowl bit that's gonna give me the exact profile I need, while also leaving a curved edge that makes these tabs much stronger and way less prone to just snapping off. But the biggest issue is that I have to do this on 200 strips, one at a time, and then I need to cut the tab on both ends. So basically, I have to make the same cut 400 times. And this is sort of the running theme making these Tambour doors, as you're gonna see as I get further into the build. Making Tambour strips is a long, slow process, and then each step of the process is quite tedious, but strangely, I really enjoy tedious tasks like this, especially when I can just put on some tunes, turn my brain off, and just get to work.
Chapter 1 of wood finishing, comprising staining, varnishing, and polishing.
And who am I kidding? I mean, I can't turn my brain off. The best I can do is maybe turn the volume down slightly. Plywood is the best option for making the tambour strips, but it's not the best looking material there is out there. Also, if I just left it like it was, you would see the light colored birch face grain of the plywood, so I decided to paint these edges black. Now, my hope is this is further going to hide the fact that I use plywood, because as tambour doors slide around one of the corners, it's going to cause the slats to separate, and then you'll be able to see the plywood in between. And what I'm really hoping is that the black paint is going to put all the focus on that veneer face. And while those are drying, I got to work on making 2 plywood forms. And this is something else where my past work making tambour doors has led to a few modifications to make this form even more useful. Here's an example from a different build, but this shows how I make a form and then compress the strips of wood using a wedge. But this time I'm going to add a groove on those top and bottom strips, and then this groove is going to fit perfectly over the tab on each strip. And I'm just sort of hoping this will eliminate the issues that I've had in the past with those strips shifting around and pulling up in the form. And so far on this build, I've hit a few speed bumps that have slowed me down a bit, but you know, I'm feeling pretty good about my game plan thus far.
Good thing you wore your brown pants.
One of the biggest speed bumps that I have diving into these projects is the cost. Take our backyard, for instance. My wife and I want to do a major upgrade, but that major upgrade is not going to be cheap. And that's where Avon comes in. They're the sponsor of this video. So what is Avon? Well, Avon offers a genius way to tackle that home renovation or just any other big project that you've been dreaming of by tapping into your home's equity. But Avon offers a home equity line of credit unlike any that you've ever heard of. It's a credit card in the front, a home equity line of credit in the back, and yes, Avon is basically the mullet of credit cards. In about 3 minutes, you can see what you qualify for, no hard credit pull, and be approved in as little as 15 minutes. Instead of sky-high credit card rates, Avon gives you lower rates, sometimes even as low as 7.5%, and flexible limits from $5,000 all the way up to $400,000. No annual fees, no opening fees, and no closing fees. Plus, earn cash back on every purchase. And with 4.8 stars on Trustpilot, the reviews speak for themselves. So if you've been waiting for the right time to finally tackle your dream project, this is it. Go to that link down below in the description. No hard pull, no hassle, just the freedom to create your dreams. I'm not gonna lie, I may have peeked, that's why it's open, but I have not seen it in person yet. I've seen photos, but I haven't seen it in person, and in the photos it looks amazing. So I am so excited to get this out of the box. So let's do it. Oh. I've never worked with veneer like this before. I had them send me 2 of them, and one is like the one I definitely want to use. The other one should be like highly figured. So let's actually, oh, I just saw the corner. Oh, that's beautiful. Holy moly. Wow. Okay, so this is Claro Walnut Burl. Oh man, this part is really cool. It'll come together and that pattern will all be like that, which is gonna be really difficult. I'm just realizing how much of a shit show it's gonna be to try to get those to line up perfectly, but they have to line up perfectly. And I've never worked with veneer before, so what could go wrong? So I switched gears to building the base of this cabinet, and by now I think it's pretty obvious that this build is heavily inspired by Aaron Port's work and the other people out there making these veneer tambour cabinets, and I decided that I wanted to go in a different direction as those guys when it came to making the base, and the inspiration for this cabinet base actually hit me during my last build, that paper table project.
Flashback.
Maybe I'll do that on that cabinet in there. While I was building that table, I had a sudden spark of an idea for this cabinet, and this is what I came up with. Again, I'll be using 1/4-inch plate steel that's put together with half-lap joints and then welded. And this design sort of gives me some mid-century modern vibes, but you know what? I'm always curious what you guys think. And I really tried to come up with something simple that doesn't take away from the wood grain on the tambour doors, but still creates something that works with the overall vibe of this piece. And just like on the last build, I want to give a huge shout out to Lincoln Electric for making this all possible. Their welding equipment and PPE is awesome, and I've got links for everything that I use down below. This part of the build came together super fast, which is great because at this point, I needed the momentum. Fix that. I know what to do. All right, the base is done and I sent that off to get powder coated. Nothing crazy this time. I'm just gonna go with classic glossy black. It's time to finish making those tambour doors, but I first have to do some work to make sure the glue that I'm using to attach the veneers doesn't seep down between the strips and then cause those to stick together. And this meant adding painter's tape to every single strip of tambour. All 200, and not just on one side, but both sides. And the prep work alone to get the tambour strips ready to attach the veneer took an entire day of work, and that's even with Jeff helping me out. I still need to cut the veneer to fit over the strips, and I have to be very careful to make sure that that pattern matches on both sides, because these doors are gonna close in the middle of the cabinet, and then that grain pattern needs to be a mirror image of itself on both sides. And not wanting to screw up the veneer right here, I was extra careful when I was cutting it. I mean, at first, I would only use an X-Acto blade and a straight edge, but eventually I did get brave enough to use my track saw, but only after putting a bunch of tape on the edge to prevent any sort of tear out. This right here is gonna be the most important step of this whole build, but you know what? At some point, you just gotta go for it. Okay, we're about to do what is up to this point the most stressful part of this project, which is we're gonna adhere the veneer, this guy right here, to the plywood substrate. And being this is a process that I've never done before, using materials that I've never used before, that makes this very difficult and high likelihood of something going wrong. The thing about this stuff is you only have 10 to 12 minutes of working time, which is a very, very small amount of working time whenever you have to roll it all on, put the veneer on, tape it down, put the vacuum bag together, pull the vacuum, get it all clamped down. It's just not that much time. Hey. No. Okay, you're done, buddy. I love you, but you're not allowed to be in here. So we got everything set up. Okay, man, I'm nervous. Once we crack this glue open and we start going, that's it. I'm already panicking.
It smells interesting.
It does?
Oh God. Carry that side over, I'll line this side up.
Okay. How is it?
Dead nuts.
Let's do it. Let's tape it. And then have it come off and then fold her over. Nice and tight. Parker, will you kind of... Okay.
Uh-oh.
Let's get this guy on. Go ahead and hit the pump. 21. Almost
Hissing
22.
coming from this, you can hear the hissing.
Huh?
You can hear the hissing coming from this. Compressor.
I mean, I feel like we're getting really good pressure.
Yeah, you can see the lines of the plywood through it.
Nice job. Coming into this build, one of the biggest questions I had was how to cut the veneer apart once I get to this point. And the most logical thing would just be to use a razor blade to cut those strips apart, but I'm also sort of worried about that razor gouging into the plywood or cutting too far on the veneer. So for that reason, I decided to invent my own tool. Has this ever happened to you? You're trying to cut tambour strips and it's just not working. Save your back and stop cutting tambour strips like a caveman. Get the Taminator 3000. Clean cuts every time, zero thinking required. 16 out of 27 woodworkers recommend the Taminator 3000, so what are you waiting for? Get yours today. Results may vary, shipping and handling not included, no CODs. So I've already talked about how one of my biggest issues on this project is figuring out how to cut those veneers apart without losing a lot of that wood grain. There's a little slot right here for a razor blade, which is gonna go in there. This will screw onto here like this, and then that offset right there between this fence and the razor blade is the exact width of one of those plywood strips. Run it along the edge of each one of those strips, and hopefully that will very neatly cut those veneers apart. So I just gotta put it together. Again, I'm using those little heat set threaded inserts. Wow. I have to burn myself at least once. So the razor blade, which I already tested this, but look how well, like first try, just kind of guessing at the tolerance, and it is like a perfect fit. Look at that. like perfectly flush. I'm always surprised when I know what I'm doing. It's angled, as you can see, to where just that front edge is down. I can like score it a couple times and then cut it apart. That's the idea. Okay, so there it is. And that will just run right on the edge. Yeah, we have a piece. Look at that, dude. That's perfect, man. It feels good in the hand. There's nothing more satisfying than prototyping and making your own tools. Now we'll see if it works. How is that working so good? Nothing ever works out that good for me. How? It's perfect, dude. When it comes to other artists who have built veneer tambour cabinets, I have a feeling that my method is probably similar to theirs. But honestly, at this point, it doesn't matter if I'm doing it like everyone else because I've managed to find my own way and it's working. Don't get ahead of yourself. There's still a long way to go. If you remember earlier, I had to use tape on every single one of those strips. And what I didn't account for is that when I added the veneer, that glue kind of seeped out onto the tape, which protected the tambour strips, but it also made the tape extremely difficult to remove. We literally, me and Jeff, spent 2 full days removing all that tape. It was so time consuming and tedious, and it was about as bad as you can imagine it was. The number one question that I get about making tambour doors is, what do you use for the backer material? And most often, I'm just using basic canvas, like literally the cheapest stuff I can find. Literally just those canvas painter's drop cloths that you get at Home Depot, they work great. But here's the thing. After applying wood glue, it ends up looking kind of gross. So this time, I'm switching to black canvas. And to minimize those fraying issues that I've had in the past, I'm also going to use some iron-on seam tape along all the edges. The second most question that I get asked when it concerns making tambour doors is, what kind of glue do I use to attach the fabric to the tambour strips? And normally I would just use, just basic regular wood glue. But after getting such good results with the veneer glue, I decided to wing it and use that for the backer fabric as well. This whole time I've been talking about the difficulties with this build, but I haven't mentioned at all who or even what it's for. And initially I intended to sell this piece when I was done building, but once I got into the build and once I realized how much I relied on other artists' design to help me come up with my version, I just sort of came to the conclusion that I don't think it would be right for me to sell this piece, regardless of how enticing it would be to sell it for like 15 or 20 grand that I think this piece is going to be worth. Now, morally, ethically, maybe even legally, selling a copy of another artist's work is just not a good look. So I'm going to completely take that option off the table. I'd also love to keep it myself, but I already have a surplus of record cabinets, and I highly doubt my wife is going to be cool with me trying to sneak another one into our house. So I've decided to do something a little bit different here. Now, my older daughter just moved out of our home and into her first house with her boyfriend, and I know that's a day that many parents sort of look forward to. I get it. But while I am really excited for her and what she's got ahead, I'm also a bit bummed out. I mean, I loved having my daughter living with us, and now she's gone and I just miss her. She even took her dog Olive with her too. And if I'm being honest, I think that was actually the hardest part of her moving out, but you know what, don't tell Chloe. But I wanted to come up with a nice little housewarming gift for Chloe, and being that she's also into vinyl records like I am, what better to give her the nicest record player cabinet that I've ever made for her very first home. And I cannot wait to see her reaction, but before we get there, we got to get this build over the finish line. All right, back to the drawers. I've still got a few more steps before they're ready to go in. I always say the last 10% of a project takes like 90% of the time, and I always say that because it's always true. I'm almost done with this build, but I haven't even made the door pulls for the tambour doors, and to help tie the inner cabinet together with the doors, I'm going to use the same curly maple that I used for the drawer faces to make the door pulls. And thankfully, I did remember to leave the router all dialed in from the last time that I was cutting the tabs on those plywood tambour strips, so I know this is going to line up exactly like I need it to. On the drawer faces and the door pulls, I'm going to use a contrasting piece of walnut for the pulls, and I went ahead and carved these over on the CNC. Remember that base that I welded earlier? Well, we sent that off for powder coating and it just showed back up and I get to see it for the first time. Sometimes you just gotta go classic. I haven't used this one in a while. That'll look good, man. So simple. Sometimes that's all you need. It took me a while to figure out exactly how I wanted to finish this cabinet, and to me it has a very mid-century modern vibe, so I wanted the finish to reflect that. And I'm going with some amber tinted shellac, and I'm really curious what you guys think, but I think that adding a glossy amber tint to the whole cabinet gives it that kind of old school mid-century modern vibe. It also helps the 3 very different species of walnut that I use in this build to match in color more closely. If you've made it this far into the video, I want to thank you just for watching. I mean, we've got a lot more awesome builds planned to close out this year and moving into 2026, and the goal is going to be to put out a video every 2 weeks. Now, if you enjoyed this build and had some fun along the way and want to see more like it, please get subscribed because it is the #1 way to support what I do and it costs you nothing. And myself and everyone here on the Johnny Builds team, we all just wanted to say that we're so grateful for all of you. Hey, before I go, I want to give a quick shout out to U-Turn Audio, who sent out their Orbit turntable and the Ethos speakers for me to try out. This setup is amazing. It sounds really good and it looks even better. So if you're a vinyl lover like I am, make sure to check out that link down in the description below. And now it's the moment I've been waiting for this entire time. Let's go get my daughter and show her her new record cabinet.
Y'all are freaks. What's happening right now?
This is the Tambour cabinet that I just made, and it's yours.
Oh my God, this is mine?
Uh-huh.
Oh my God, thank you.
Aw. Love you, girl.
Oh, you're the
You
best.
deserve it. I may not have built it exactly like that original artist, but I think our version is awesome. Thanks for tuning in, and here's a couple more videos I think you'll enjoy.